Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. Today I want to show you the Piñata alcohol inks. I know I've shown you them before, but there's some new colours. So brass, pearl, gold, silver. There's another one. Where's the other one? Gary, no, got it. How do you want them? Laying down?
Laying down,
that's it. Okay, so new colours, and these colours are really exciting because they're the metallic colours or the pearlescent colours, which really add that kind of a bit of oomph to an alcohol painting. So we had the rich gold, we had the silver. So the rich gold created quite organic patterns. The silver's quite heavy, so it kind of creates a much more solid, doesn't have the blooming effect of the rich gold. But the brass, the copper and the pearl all have that lovely blooming effect. So have to shake them to activate, because you can see here this one is separated because of the pigments. The pigments are heavy, and so a good shake, that's why they've got the ball inside to shake. So I'm going to be using those in the demonstration. For those who don't know what alcohol inks are, they're a dye-based ink, and the ink you get in Copic pens or Stelfile pens, excuse me, and what they do is they work really interestingly on a shiny surface. So tile, glass, anything with a shiny surface. This is the SAA wet media UPO. There are different types of UPO paper, and we do have different ones. This is a wet media one because it has that little bit more shiny surface, which allows you to do this. So you just drop it on, and the blooming I was explaining about is that wonderful movement you get from the alcohol inks. You can drop into. You'll learn which colours work better with each colour, and some colours, like, I don't think I've got the purple, I'll try rainforest green, are actually quite dark. They're quite nice colours, but some colours, definitely the purple and the rainforest green, are very dark colours. So with those darker pigment colours, you need to add Claro. Now this is slightly pink because I've contaminated it with probably putting the pink lid back onto the Claro. But if you drop it in, what it does is it dilutes the strength. There's two types. There's the Claro, which has the alcohol in it, but also has a binder. Now the binder is really important for surfaces. So if you're doing it on canvas, if you don't use Claro and just use the alcohol, it can start to get brittle. You see these brittle flakes? That's just the ink drying. And if you don't have enough binder, it can start to flake off the canvas because it's a little bit flexible. So the Claro is a thinner. It helps reactivate and move the alcohol inks, which you can use the, it's called clean-up solution in this range, but it's the alcohol, rubbing alcohol. You can use it in the same way, but just be aware that the Claro has the binder, which keeps the adhesive properties of the alcohol inks on some surfaces.
Anita?
Yes?
Before we kick off, we've got a question about what precautions you need to take for alcohol inks. Is there anything special you need to do?
Well, alcohol inks are quite staining, so they will stain your hands and they will stain your clothes. They've got the rubbing alcohol solution in them, so they do have an odour. So maybe a ventilated room, if you're sensitive to it. I use them quite often, and you know when they're getting a bit powerful, so walk away. So I would suggest you do them in a well-ventilated room, and maybe not for too long. So you'll see on here how much that's moved. You can add spray to it and add texture. So this is, again, just the alcohol into a spray bottle. I've also used one of the water brushes and put it in so I can move it around and thin out, and you get lovely textured movements with it. Pause. And a lot of it is you need to leave it. You need to wait until it's finished moving. So I can get a tissue in. I can control it, you see here, with the brush and make really nice, smooth lines. So there's a lot of things you can do with it, but a lot of the fun it is just dropping it on and seeing what happens. We did this in-house, to be honest. And what we did was we dropped colours onto the Yupo paper, and then we cut it out and stuck those onto canvases, and we made flowers. So there's lots of ways to use it. So Yupo paper, if you didn't know, look how wonderful that colour is. It's one of the metallic colours, brass. And that's what I mean by the organic movement. Silver, let's try silver and I'll show you the difference with the silver. It's very heavy pigment, so tends to just, you see, that doesn't have that organic movement. May even need another shake, but it's quite heavy. Does move, but not as effectively or as metallic looking as the other metallics. So you'll see there that lovely kind of organic movement. So it will dry. It'll dry very quickly. That's the great thing about that. You can reactivate with the alcohol or the Claro and rework, but once it's dried, it's waterproof. The wet media Yupo paper is plastic paper. Literally can't tear it. You can write underwater with pencil. It's waterproof paper, it's plastic. But it doesn't mean you can't use it for other mediums, alcohol inks. Watercolour does work on it. You would think it wouldn't because you expect watercolour to work on a paper that's absorbent. But actually it does work on here. And it's great for lifting off. So you can do some really lovely lifted off colours. And what's a surprise is that it dries quite well and quite quickly. You'd expect it to dry slowly, but it doesn't. It dries quite quickly. So this is the wet media Yupo paper. It's slightly more shiny than other surfaces of Yupo, but plastic paper, great for lots of things. So what I've done is I've used a bigger sheet and I've sketched out Gary.
Hello. Is it upside down?
Yeah.
Turn it around.
I sketched out my image with all the autumn colours. So autumn leaves are just going to really give themselves to using lots of the Piñata colours. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by creating barriers so I can isolate some of the colours and where they flow to. And we're going to be doing this using a CERN relief. Now CERN relief works best if you pull it towards you like this. If you push it up, you can get, I don't know if you can see there, it pushes away so it doesn't create the barrier. So try and remember, if you want to create a good barrier, you need to pull it towards you. And that just means moving the paper around if you have to. And I'm just going to, I've chosen to use the gold, which is a really wonderful gold colour, and it stays this lovely raised. So think about embellishments in other pieces of work. Now, I am trying to think about where I'm going. The reason is I usually end up leaning on it. And I want to keep the raised barriers. Now this takes about half an hour to an hour to dry, depending on the heat in the room. So what we'll do is we'll have a little, and you'll see there how you can just push and create texture within the leaves. I'm thinking about, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about where do I want gold and where do I want copper for my outline, because I'm using the two different barriers. I'm going to use them for this leaf and this shape. There we go. It's really quite nice. It's a bit like icing. And certain relief can be used for so many different mediums. It's great for, it's Pebeo, so it's great for all those Pebeo paints. And those Fantasy and the Moon again creates barriers so that the paints don't run into each other, or you can control where they go. But I like to use it as well as texture. So on a piece, you just want, maybe you've done a poppy and the middle bit, you just want some texture, you just dot it and add that extra bit of texture to a painting, because it stays raised, but it also has the wonderful colours. So this is the copper, and there's gold, there's a transparent one, which is actually a lot of fun. I've used transparent in the past on a black canvas, and what it does, because it's transparent, it dries transparent, but you will still have the black canvas below it because that's the colour that it's shining through. And so that's an interesting use. Gold, copper, there is black, again, that's great for inside of flowers, mixed media, anything that you just want a little bit more texture. And I don't know if you can see, but it just stays that lovely raised. And it goes on really finely. That's another point with these, is how finely they go on. Now the nozzles, because you've got quite a thick medium, the nozzles do get blocked, but it's very easy just to get a fine pin, unblock, that away you go. But I've actually used them as drawing tools as well. So onto a canvas and literally drawn the image using one of these. Okay, don't want to get, if I leave and go everywhere, what I do is I end up leaning all over. So I'm trying to think about a plan, but I doubt if I'll stick to it. Just look at those shapes. Now, to get the images, all I did was just sketch out lots of different shaped leaves, and then just put them down in kind of a ad hoc way. But the colour at this time of year is wonderful. You can get really inspired by all the colours of the leaves, and so just take your camera out, take pictures of them still on the trees or on the ground. Now I may get a little lost with where some of my leaves are, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just picking out the main shapes. But you can see how easy it really is to create this barrier. Remembering to put a little bit of detail. I'm going to use the gold for all of those shapes. So these are fairly new ones, which is why they're nice and easy to put on. I shouldn't really be squeezing from the middle, I should be squeezing from the outside, but I will remember to move my hand down. Now, I'm not overly bothered if some of the colour I put in does leak into the background. That's absolutely fine, because it's a hole, I don't want it to be just very totally isolated. So some colours running doesn't really matter. I tend to forget this bit. And I'm purposely not squeezing any of the colour out to make that extra texture you see there. Because I'm not squeezing it, it's not all coming out in an even flow, which is making really nice textures. Gotta do that one in gold. Oops. I can't see where it is. I can now. Okay. Okay. So, where can I put some more gold? Here, because that leaf goes behind. I'm going to put gold on there. It doesn't really matter where you put the colours. It's just I'm looking for a balance. But I've also noticed a lot of those golds are around the outside up there, so I need to bring some gold inside. I'm not totally sure which leaf is which here, but it doesn't really matter as long as I have a... Oh, it doesn't work there. Let's make a shape. So it needs some of the copper in here. I think I'm just going to... But this isn't taken too long to build up, and I haven't actually leaned on it yet, which is great. That's the bit I forget, is the texture in the middle. Okay, don't know what they are, but put them on. Okay. Right, so this one's on the outside. So when the leaves are like a jumble like this, as long as you do a few which look like leaves, a lot of it can be kind of how it fits, what works, what shapes you can or can't see in the middle.
Don't get it upside down.
But don't, yeah. This happens quite often. It must be my work. I do pieces for the magazine and I kind of go and say, you've put that in upside down. So I don't understand. But then again, I did draw it and I know which way round it should have been. But I only noticed it just now, so it's not a big deal, to be honest. I don't get upset with things like that. Okay. It's nearly done. So just look for the additional pieces. There's one there. So that does take about, I would say I'd leave it an hour to dry. So I have actually done one because it's still wet and chances are I'm going to lean on it and smudge it.
It might be upside down, Anita.
It's upside down. But I'm going to live with it because it means untaping all these. I'll live with it. It's a group of leaves, even though I know it's upside down. Okay, so I'm going to start dropping in the alcohol inks. So this is nice and dry and it feels. That's one thing I do notice when you have certain relief on your work, the first thing people do is just want to touch it and feel it, and I'm doing the same. It's a lovely experience. So I'm just going to drop in the yellow because that's given me quite a light base for a lot of the colours. I'm not overly thinking about where it's going. The next bit is I'm going to drop in greens, and this time I'm going to decide where I want to put a more green leaf. because some of these are going to be much more red or brown. Others are going to have the green. Again, I'm not overthinking it. And you can see there how it's already starting to move into itself. So the alcohol in the water brush, I have written alcohol on it, again with the Cermin leaf, just so I don't get it confused with watercolour.
What I've done, Anita, the picture that people see right at the end, I've flipped it, so
Well
the
done.
finished version of it.
It's actually usually Gary that gets a little upset when things are upside down, but he's going to put this upside down. Okay, so you can see there how I'm going up to the Cermin relief and how much you can move the ink. So I can feel the alcohol ink it's quite strong. So a well ventilated room is necessary. Okay. So just now using some of the colour I have already on my brush, so I'm not putting too much colour on. Just a bit of greenery. Oh, that's my hair. That's normal. It's either cat hair or I've lost one of my hair. It's amazing where cat hairs get. They're even in the car, everywhere. So I'm cleaning the brush, just decontaminating, and now I'm going to go in with some brown. And I can drop it from a height, which gets a bigger spread, but I do like a little bit of control. So this is the, oh, it's orange actually, not brown. I will put brown in. I'm also looking for a balance. As I'm putting colour in, I want to see a balance of colours. I'm going to put brown in now, if I pick up the right one. Tangerine. Maybe I didn't bring brown. No black. Okay, maybe I didn't bring it. So I'm going to put in, I think, some red or magenta. That's a look at that colour. This is a really beautiful colour. But you have so many different colours in the autumn. But what I can see is I need some more yellow. So if you see, if I drop yellow into these colours, it just changes them. If I drop yellow in, I can, if it's too much, I can add a darker colour. But with the lighter base, I just know if I drop a strong colour in, it's not going to overpower it. So Rainforest Green is quite a dark colour. I'm going to use it for a little bit of the darker textures I want to bring some of the leaves forward. Drop that in there. And you can see by adding that darker colour around some of these leaves, it just makes them ping forward a little bit. Oh, Gary sneaked out, thought he'd just abandoned me, and he's brought me the brown because he knows where I keep things. Thank you. That will look nice to put on. So now Gary has gone to all that effort to sneak out and leave me behind on my own.
You were directing it yourself then.
I'm going to drop some brown in. Now, I know it's quite a strong colour, so what I'm going to do is use some Claro to see if I can lighten, bring out more of the brown.
Sort of a pinky brown.
Pinky brown. But there's loads of colours in the leaves at this time of year. Just going to go back in with my pen, move it, just bring out the leaf shapes. You can see you can control, you don't have to just let it. Push it around, get rid of some of these white areas. And because I've got some colour there, I'm just going to darken, so in, bring out some of the leaves. Decontaminate my brush, squeeze a little bit of rubbing alcohol. You can see how that lightens. So I know it sticks. I was talking about the Claro being an adhesive. I know it sticks to the Yupo paper, so I don't have too many concerns using it. Just filling in the holes. But look how the lovely colours we've got here. I'm going to use an orange. So a different orange. That's a favourite. I'll try that one. See what this does. Go. Also, let's see what happens. I use the spray. What I'm doing is looking, make sure I'm not spraying towards me. Now it does that. Doesn't always stay like that, which is a shame. But you do have to learn to leave things and let them continue to develop, because the colours will change.
Was that a joke? Leave?
Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. That was an accidental pun. I'm concentrating, Gary.
Sorry, I know you can't be funny and painting at the same time.
I can't be either. Right, let me think. Some more yellow. Just because I'm looking at a balance of colour, and I think that yellow works.
Can you put a lighter colour on top of the dark? Push it away.
It pushes it away, so let's drop it, this light yellow, into that one, and you can see it pushes it away. It doesn't always, depends on the colour. And this is how you I learnt to use the yellow first, and I learnt how it makes that really bright, strong magenta much more subtle red. Okay. Right, just need to stand back. Just going to drop in some of the darker forest green in some areas. The reason being, I need some depth. At the moment it's a bit too even. So by dropping the dark in some areas, it pushes leaves forward and drops others back. So it's the same as painting. I'm thinking about that even when I'm doing this. Thinking about what do I need to bring forward, what can I push back. I do have black, and I did bring black to use, but I think the green is working enough without drowning out the colours. So let's move this. There. Just losing the spaces I still have. Okay. Right, now for some fun, because I haven't yet used the wonderful golds. This is brass. I'm just going to drop it on. Some of the red leaves. It's lovely.
Anita?
Yes.
Got a question from Liz.
Hello, Liz.
She says, she asks, do you ever have a problem with the ink staying sticky after they dry? Do you finish it with a UV spray or anything, or just leave it be?
Staying sticky after dry, yes, sometimes. Don't know why, they just do. Because I stack them on top of each other and then realise I can't get them apart. That's possibly because I've stacked them before they're dried. And the varnish, I don't always, mostly because not every piece of work is finished. It's a demonstration piece like this. But it is important, if you want to do a varnish on it, that you use an acrylic varnish, because some varnishes have solvent in, and the solvent just reactivates the alcohol inks. So I've used a really nice artist quality spray varnish, which, because these are dye based, they will fade with light. So to help protect it, now this is the pearl, to help protect it, a spray varnish, nice fine layer, all put behind glass. So yes, it is important if you have a finished piece to put a finish on top and make sure it's make sure it's an acrylic based varnish, not a solvent based. And it just offers that protection, that UVA protection. Look at that fizzing, it just fizzes. It's really nice. The pearl's much more subtle. Kind of gives a bit like a frosting effect. Now I've lost a little bit in here, so what am I going to do? I'm just going to go mad and put another bit of gold in. Ooh, so this is the brass I used. What did I use first? Must have been either the copper or the gold. Or I just want to add a little bit. I'll see if we'll put some silver on. Now I know the silver doesn't work. So I'm just looking, rich gold, brass, copper. Let's see if the copper has a little bit more richness. Yeah, see, that's just a slightly richer metallic colour. That's really nice. So the two together. Don't want to overdo it, but it's just so nice. I'm just going to spray. So just for an extra organic feel, I'm just going to add a spray, just see if I can dissipate any solid areas. Like I say, it dries really quickly. So for a final finish, I'm going to give it a background orange. See if I can make these leaves ping forward. Okay. It's just the way I'm applying it. It's another way you can see how to apply. So that's the orange, the brown. A lot of this kind of painting is you just let it do its own thing and see what happens. And I like that. Okay. So that's not moving into itself yet, but I'll wet it. And then use the brush to push in, make it all a part of the whole picture. My brush is a little contaminated, so just need to decontaminate that. And what I know is I can go back over. Doesn't mean this is a finished or final piece. I can go back in, add more colour. There is a limit. You do end up making a little bit of mud sometimes, but I think by just playing with them, seeing what they do. That green is where the lid was tight on the bottle, and it's just dry ink. So it's a little bit running into the leaves, but that doesn't matter. They're not separate. They're fixed to the ground. They're part of it.
Anita.
And what? Yes.
Sorry. Another question for you.
Yes.
What would you use to fix the inks if you wanted to draw over them again with a pen?
You don't need to be honest. I often draw over them with a pen. So Poscas are fabulous, or gel pens, black or white. It dries really quick, and because it's waterproof, it allows you to go over with a pen. So you don't actually need to fix them. Once they're dry, just go over with a nice gel pen. And that's how I often bring out detail. So if I've done something like a bird, you can bring out the eyes and details. White gel pens are really fabulous on this. And I'd do it on tile, again using the lovely gel pens. Poscas are my favourite. They're a great brand of pens which go over pretty much anything. But you just let it dry. You don't need to fix it before you put anything on it, because the Posca pens will go on anything. And yeah, that's something I do. And what I can do is go back over with the Cerm Relief again, add detail and texture. I can cut it up, like I've said before, we did this in-house. We cut them up, made flowers, made petals and leaves with them, and stuck them onto a canvas. And it looks really effective. It's nicely hanging in the building. So that's, you can, as an area you don't like, don't throw it away. You can cut it out and use it on a card, or use it as part of another piece. So just going around and squeezing the alcohol out as I go. Nearly done. Left a space there. Not finished yet, because I want to add some more texture. But look how organic that is already. I had a piece of tissue, so I was just going to lift off. Again, I was just checking which way the spray was. I wish it would stay like that. I can pounce it, move it, add texture in. Okay, there's one little area missing a bit, which is bothering me. There, fixed it. Got some little holes. But like I say, you can go back in. Need to stand back. So, I can keep going. I can go back and do some darker areas underneath here. But I'm going to stop. No, I'm not. I said I was going to stop, Gary.
You lied to me.
But I decided I want to put some of this fabulous copper colour into here. I'm going to pounce on it, because I want it a little bit more subtle. You won't see this until you tip it. So by just pouncing it around, I'm actually moving the copper. And once it dries, you'll then see it's a little bit more subtle. Okay, so showing you using Cerm Relief to isolate areas and just dropping the Piñata alcohol inks in on the wet media surface. So you can do this on tile, do this on glass, and you can see it's on my fingers and that will stain. So use gloves and in a ventilated area, because it does have a powerful odour. But if you walk away or you're aware of that, just take those precautions. So I hope you enjoyed that autumn leaves. To be honest, that's probably drying. So you let it dry, you can go back in with pen. You can just see how that works. So how a frame putting around a picture really makes it ping forward. And join us later in the week for a live workshop with Jeremy Ford.